It was Friday the 13th. Today I would be confronted with numerous omens. Would they be good or very, very bad? Earlier that week I wasn't feeling particularly lucky as I searched for stray cats people had called me about. From a tortoiseshell cat who lived on wasteland to a white cat seen eating out of bins. I couldn't find them, but there are always others to help. Like this little sweetie, who's another story. I left my number with some of the more caring locals who had seen the strays. They would kindly call me with any sightings. After days of fruitless searching, I headed back to the car, purposely tempting fate by walking under a ladder. I could do with the change in fortune. First thing next morning, Friday the 13th, I went to find a homeless brown tabby cat who was wandering around an estate. I found the rubbish he was seen eating from, but the tabby was nowhere in sight. Then I met Bernie. She knew nothing of the tabby, but told me of a stray black cat who had given birth 8 weeks ago in the overgrown garden of a vacant flat. After hearing constant crying, Bernie's husband jumped the fence and found the only surviving kitten. Sadly, stray mum obviously couldn't fight off the predators and lost her other babies. It must have been an absolute nightmare. Bernie managed to find a rescue centre for the newborn and kindly built a makeshift home for the stray mum. It helped her survive the snow and freezing temperatures, but Bernie was always worried the destructive neighbourhood kids would set it on fire. After some waiting, she finally appeared. Friday the 13th, a black cat crossed my path. She was only a kitten herself, I estimated 18 months old. She retreated to the garden. I then met resident animal lover Tiffany, who had also been looking out for her. After chatting for 20 minutes, stray mum was back. I learnt she'd been homeless for at least 6 months, and no one had ever managed to touch her. Having lived outside for so long, the fur to her underside was matted, and her tail had discoloured to ginger. I also learnt she'd been eating the bread a lady put out for the birds. This is how she must have survived before Bernie and Tiffany became aware and started feeding her. The little love still wouldn't come close. I tried to draw her out with play, but she was just too wary.
What a good girl.
So Friday the 13th ends. I named her Princess Priscilla. I think I made a little friend, or had I? The next morning, I tended to Picasso, the old street cat I rescued and adopted myself 18 months ago. He was really quite poorly. I was so worried about him, but couldn't leave Priscilla waiting. I'd been toing and froing, trying to befriend her, whilst door-knocking for an owner. Normally, she was with an unneutered Tom called Felix, who lived locally, but worryingly, today, he appeared alone. Then, as is usual, a local house cat appears, pleading a strong case of starvation. Meet Poppy. The sun came out, and to much relief, she reappeared and is back with her sidekick. Sadly, they didn't know they were about to be separated. Felix and his family would be moving to another city in a couple of days. Next morning, I made a quick decision to trap Priscilla. Her friend was moving, no owner had come forward, and I couldn't leave her to conceive again. I arrived full of excitement, but again, there was no sign of her. I searched around the block, but nothing. Unbeknownst to me, I was walking past the hiding spot of the brown tabby cat I'd originally been called about. I set the trap in hope. It was unusually hot weather. Maybe she was just hiding somewhere in the shade. Leaving aromatic nibbles in the trap, I retreated to the car to watch and wait. It didn't take long for her to appear. Then she went around, in, out, and even stretched her neck to reach the bait and avoid triggering the trap. I thought I'd miss my chance. Then back she came. I was really feeling for the frightened girl.
Hey, princess.
No more having babies on the streets or fighting off predators. We're heading home.
Here you go.
I just hoped she would trust, stay calm, and not climb the walls. Finally, I got to see if she had a microchip. No surprise, she didn't. Stressed and panting, I got her some water, and as I did so, she disappeared under the bed.
Come on, I'll give you a little bit of space.
Then, suddenly, a loud cracking sound. Right before my eyes, the window had cracked from top to bottom. There was no explanation. She stayed under the bed all night and hadn't eaten or used the litter tray. Who knows if she's ever been inside or used litter? I added some soil to help her understand. Finally hungry, I took my chance to coax her from under the bed so I could give her a pat and start bonding.
Here you go. Good girl. Where's a little bit more? There you go. There you go. There you go. Good girl.
And sure enough, you know who, resident rescue cat Madonna, wanted to know who that is and what's in the bowl. Next day, we're off to the vet's. She was very good to let me handle her. Let's hope she's not pregnant. First, Matt from Ashleigh Veterinary Centre gave her a health check. Weight, double check for microchip, teeth, ears, eyes, heart and lungs. All was good. Thankfully, there were no signs of pregnancy. I did, however, need to make sure she was actually the unspayed mum. Matt clipped, checking for old surgery scars from Spain. There was nothing. Later that day, Madonna was still curious. Despite everything that had happened, Priscilla really surprised me by playing. It was a big relief that she was in good health and her blood tests were clear. She was a little tatty from her time on the streets. I look forward to getting the colour, sheen and body back to her coat. While Priscilla was doing well, my other resident cat Picasso was really struggling. Here he is on the day I rescued him, 18 months ago. Strangely, this would have been around the time Priscilla was born. He had recently been diagnosed with an aggressive, incurable tumour. Sadly, I had to bring him to the vet to be put to sleep the day after Priscilla had her health check. My special little guy made biscuits until the very end and left this world tucked up in his favourite blanket. Back home, and I found Priscilla sleeping in late Picasso's favourite spot. They had briefly crossed paths. I got a sense Picasso calmed her and gave her his blessing. Priscilla and I shared a moment as she eased my tears. Next day, I pulled myself together. I needed to prepare Priscilla for adoption. She was really trying to be agreeable, but it was obvious she hadn't been handled much.
Good girl.
From a very tense beginning, she began to enjoy affection, something I'm sure she'd never experienced.
She is special.
She did struggle to understand some things.
I'll give you a brush.
I managed to cut out all her matted fur and introduced her to brushing.
Yeah? Little brush. That's all it is, a brush. Oh, don't fall.
A few days later, we headed to the vet for spaying. A tough week ahead for both of us. I was so nervous all day until Nicoletta, the vet, sent me a post-op video of her comforting Priscilla during red light therapy. At the end of the day, she's ready to come home. I was so relieved to see her. Priscilla was a candidate for a recovery suit rather than the dreaded cone. I could at least handle her if she managed to get it off. Unlike a year ago, when Madonna was spayed, the cone was the only option for the grumpy little firecracker. I do hope Priscilla realises I'm not taking the mick, but she didn't half look cute when she waddled about in her hot pink suit. I advertised Priscilla for adoption on my social media, but upsettingly, the reaction was flat.
You ready?
"10 days later, we had an appointment with vet nurse Faith to see if the scar had healed.
It looks beautiful.
Oh, that's great, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah. Look at this. Let me get it on.
Freedom!
She's free. Although you did look cute in that, didn't you? Yes, you did.
That night, I could feel her joy. Sharing a room with Priscilla was great fun. Being a big kitten, lights out, was just another opportunity to play. I didn't want Priscilla stuck in a room getting bored as she waited for her forever home. So when Madonna slept, I gave her run of the house. Then I thought I'd risk introducing them, face to face. The differences were immediately obvious. Priscilla, a young mum who had survived on the streets, compared to Madonna, who had suffered neglect and isolation for her first 6 years. She just didn't understand. Worldly Priscilla dealt with the antisocial Madonna so well,
Girl.
not rising to Madonna's confused hissing and remaining playful. Still trying, she attempted to teach the naive 7-year-old Madonna cat language, such as nose bumps and love blinks, but again, Madonna just didn't understand. Could these two become friends? Madonna will put it up for consideration. I was so pleased to get an update on Priscilla's one surviving kitten. She'd grown into a healthy ball of energy and had found a forever home. Now all grown up, she's every bit as beautiful as her mum. To further break up Priscilla's long stay, I introduced her to the garden. It took her less than 5 minutes to claim her patch and begin marking. She headed straight to the place Picasso used to mark and investigated his secret hidey hole within the ivy. She then abruptly let Jasper from 2 Up know she'd arrived. Picasso's old ally was taken aback, but he's seen it all before. Word was obviously getting around about the new girl on the block. Enter Snoopy from the top end, who she didn't fancy much. Then, beautiful Princess from 3 Up, who Picasso always had a soft spot for. Finally, Madonna pops out to see what everyone's up to. Now, 3 months since I trapped her, the beautiful girl is still with me. The wood pigeon, who late Picasso used to share the garden with, crafted a message in the snow. I finally stopped dismissing the many signs and omens and realised I was meant to be Princess Priscilla's mum. Unlucky for some may be, but I'm feeling particularly lucky to have found my little fluffy Friday the 13th black cat. I'm sure Priscilla is also feeling lucky. The 3 of us look forward to meeting whoever crosses our path next. To give another cat their lucky day, please consider supporting my channel. Thank you for joining me on another rescue.